Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzama, sitting in for Seun Okimbaloye. We are going into the weekend with a lot to contemplate over following what has happened and is happening in the polity. Now, the president and the governors are now considering the establishment of the state police to decentralize the security structure of the country, while about 60 lawmakers are making a case on why we should go back to that parliamentary system that was practiced just before the Civil War. And also, a former presidential candidate in Nigeria, Omoyele Sowore, is finally a free man because now the federal government has actually withdrawn their case of treason against him just a few days ago. So those are some of the things we'll be looking at today. Sowore will be joining us at some point of the program to recount some of the ordeals he had to go through with all of this, as well as two former lawmakers will be joining me as well on the program as we expansively look at the issue of state police and the call for change in the system of government from the presidential to the parliamentary. We may have to revisit the 2014 confab report that was organized under the Jonathan administration. But first, let's tell you the worrying signs that we're seeing with the Labour Congress saying they have declared a two-day nationwide strike. They will be declaring a two-day nationwide protest in the coming days because if the federal government refuses to fulfill that 2023 agreement they had together, about 15 or 16-point agreement they had, they will be forced to go on an indefinite strike action. During a press briefing today after the emergency National Executive Council meeting of the Congress, the president of the NLC, Mr. Joe Ajero, explains that the protest will be a prelude to a nationwide strike if the government refuses to address their concerns. Let's take a listen to him.
The NEC in session considered the unfortunate state of the nation, food suffering pervading the nation, the general crisis of living, the outrage expressed by majority, and the increased attendant fears of the continued consequences of these policies and the persistent refusal of the government to implement the tenets of the October agreement. The NEC in session also took notice of the wise decision of the National Administrative Council of the Congress to demand that the agreement be implemented. The NEC in session declares a two-day national protest on 27th and 28th of February to demonstrate outrage on the mounting hardship and insecurity around the nation. If our demands are not met after the nationwide protest, to issue a 7-day notice that will expire on the 2nd day of March 2024 to the federal government, after which an indefinite nationwide strike will ensure. If the Nigeria naira continues to depreciate, 1 million naira will be a child's play to the minimum wage. So today we are talking of about 1,500, 1,600. So if it continues that way, 1 million naira will be too small for the worker.
So you can see the NLC president, Mr. Joe Ajero, talking about the reason why the organized labor may take drastic action from waiting for that deadline to come and pass, and if nothing is done, they'll organize a nationwide protest just to drive home their demands. And if the federal government doesn't do something as quickly as possible, then they will be forced to go on a nationwide industrial action, which is what everybody, including all of us and the federal government, must do all it can to avoid. So we hope that the federal government will act fast so that this doesn't happen and add to the already challenging economic and security situation we're dealing with as a country. But the NLC is not just the only story we're taking. We also tell you that just about 24 hours before the All Progressives Congress primary election in Edo State, one of the aspirants has pulled out of the race, Pastor Osage Zeyamo, who also is a former governorship candidate in that state, in a letter addressed to the national chairman of the APC, cites need for unity and peace as reasons for his decision. He goes on to say that he made the decision after consultation with his friends and associates while appreciating the president and the leadership of the APC for their commitment to democratic ideals. Pastor Ezeyamo also pledges to support any candidate that emerges from Saturday primary. So we're seeing things begin to shape up as Edo people prepare for his election. We know that other parties will be having their primary later on in the month, but tomorrow is going to be the turn of the APC. Well, those are not the only stories we have for you. We also have your political roundup stories.
President Bola Tinubu has been named the African Union Champion for Human Resources and Community Health Delivery Partnership, according to a statement issued by the Special Advisor on Media and Publicity to the President, Mr. Ajirin Gelale. This recognition is in line with the President's commitment to train 120,000 frontline health workers nationwide within 16 months and to double the number of primary health facilities in communities across all local government areas of the Federation from 8,800 to over 17,000 over the next 3 years. The Supreme Court has dismissed the appeal filed by the federal government against the reversal of the conviction of former Niger Delta Minister Godday Orubebe on allegation of breach of code of conduct for public officers. A judgment delivered by a 5-member panel of the Apex Court held that the appeal was incompetent. In the lead judgment prepared by Justice Mohammed Garba and read by Justice Emmanuel Agim, the court held that the appellant failed to obtain the prior leave of the court before filing the appeal, which was based on grounds of mixed law and facts. And Justice Ian Ekwo of the Federal High Court, Abuja, has ordered the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice to reopen investigations and prosecutions of those who allegedly murdered the founder of Newswatch magazine, Delegiwa, in 1986. Delivering judgment, Justice Ekwo held that the AGF was under obligation to prosecute and penalize killers of media practitioners in the country. Apart from Delegiwa, the court ordered that the killings of other journalists in the discharge of their lawful duties must be investigated and perpetrators brought to book in line with the provision of the law. Justice Ekwo also ordered the federal government to ensure adequate protection and safety of lives of journalists as enshrined in sections 33 and 39 of the Constitution and Articles 4 and 9 of the African Charters on Human and People's Rights. Still in the Federal High Court, Abuja, Justice Ian Ekwo has fixed April 30 for judgment in the tussle for the leadership of the Association of Local Government Employees of Nigeria. Justice Ekwo fixed the date after taking arguments from lawyers representing various groups involved. The incorporated trustees of Algon, Abubakar Abdullahi, and Shabnan Shuaib had sued the Attorney General of the Federation and Alabi David, challenging the emergence of David as national president of Algon. And from Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde says the provision of quality infrastructure remains one of the easiest ways to usher prosperity into the lives of the people. Speaking at the commissioning of a 12.5-kilometer dualized Odo-Ona Elewe Elebu Apata Road, Governor Makinde, who was accompanied by his Enugu State counterpart, Mr. Peter Mba, promised to continue to do all required to make life easier for the people. He announced that the wage award currently being paid to workers will be extended for another 6 months.
We know things have been tough, so we promise to do more. It may not be as fast as you want things to happen, but surely we will get to our destination by God's grace.
Welcome back. Those are your excuse me. The weather has been wonderful. Sure, from where you are. So those are your political roundup stories, and we'll continue to look at what is going on in the polity, despite what the weather is doing to affect some of our voices. But we'll do our very best to keep it going. Okay, so I said that politics is one of the things that we keep tab on the program, and the reason is simple. Because political decisions are quite important to the lives of everyone. In fact, political decisions affect the economy because the decision of politicians eventually affect how things will play out in the economy. So it's important that we look at this as much as possible and to draw that nexus between the polity and the economy, which is what this show is all about. So today on the program, the president had actually made mention of the issue of state police with the governors. And he's talked about the fact that despite what is going on, there should not be importation of food, that the governors should do their best to provide for their people and not import commodity. They've also ruled out the issue of price control in terms of control mechanism, so that that element of free market continues to play out as much as possible. Those are some of the things that happened in the polity in the past few days. Also, some lawmakers are pushing, about 60 of them are pushing for the fact that we need to revisit the issue of our system of government, moving away from the presidential to the parliamentary system of government. We're going to explore that issue. But first, before we dive deep into that issue with my guests, who are two former lawmakers, let's talk to a former presidential candidate. I'm talking about Omoyele Sowore, who joins us from our Abuja studio. A few days ago, the federal government discontinued their case against him. It bordered on treason over the Revolution Now protest about 5 years ago. The judge has actually said if the federal government is not ready to continue with the case, it will be thrown out. And the day after the case was actually withdrawn, the federal government withdrew their case. The Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, talking about Lateef Fagbemi, actually wrote for the discontinuation of that trial. Mr. Sowore, thank you so much for joining us on the program. And let's say to you, happy birthday to you. We understand today is your 53rd birthday. So let me begin by saying happy birthday to you, Omoyele Sowore.
Thank you very much for that, and thanks for being here.
I thought because it's your birthday, you should be smiling, but you do not look like you're so excited. I'm wondering, I know that it's been, okay, I guess we're having a bit of a technical issues. Okay, let's get back to him. I understand we're back with him. So I understand that, it's been 5 years since this case has been on, and finally now the federal government has decided to discontinue with this particular case, pursuing the issue of treason against you due to the Revolution Now protest that occurred about 5 years ago. I want to get your first reaction to how it feels to finally be free from all of this.
Well, I want to say clearly that I wasn't freed. I freed myself by ensuring that I didn't allow the government to break me. But the truth is that what they wanted was to obtain conviction without trial. That they did get. They got me restricted to Abuja for 5 years. To Nigeria for 5 years, seized my passport, and ensured that my regular life was disrupted to a large extent. It affected my family immensely. A brother of mine during that period was killed under still unknown circumstances on Benin Road. My mom had a stroke over this issue, and she's still down. I lost everything that is possible. And within the period they were doing all this, they broke my nose. You see a scar on my face. They shot at me with a federal riot gun. And they came to court in 2019, the DSS, abducted me in front of a judge. If that is not punishment, then what is punishment? That's the question. But I did not break, and I didn't let them break me. And that's the only good news I have for all of you. But there's nothing that wasn't expected. We knew that this would happen, that those in government at that time, led by Buhari, would do everything to shut anybody down who was opposed to that ruinous regime and the political party in power at that time, which had continued to today.
So I want to find out from you, now that, this is quote unquote over, are you going to still look at this campaign that you started in 2019 about the need for a revolution? Are you going to now say, okay, it has had its time, let's not let it go, and let's face other option of effecting better governance in the system?
It is no longer a campaign. The revolution has become a reality now. Even those who were opposed to me in 2019 are now calling for a revolution. Anybody who is asking for a parliamentary system of government somehow wants to change Nigeria. It's some kind of a revolution too. Those who are asking for the two bicameral legislative systems to be shut down and combined into one are asking for. Those who are asking for this country to be restructured are asking for a revolution, because all of this would have to change the constitution. But don't get me wrong, that is not the revolution I'm asking for. The revolution I'm asking for is for this system that's unjust, unfair, and killing our people to come to an end. And that's I've been very clear about. And one of the things that happened in 2019, August 5th, 2 days after I was arrested or abducted in Lagos and brought to Abuja, on a jet, or on a twin-engine jet that I heard later crashed, killing some Air Force officers or Army officers. 5 million people searched for the meaning of the revolution, because then it was strange to them, the context. They didn't know what it was. But you go out now, you go on Twitter, you go everywhere, everybody is calling for a revolution because everybody is tired of this system. So I have not abandoned the campaign. I did not. It is the reason why I did not negotiate with anybody on this matter. 2 weeks after I was detained, they sent a delegation to me led by Issa Funtua and Garba Shehu, and said to me I should apologize to Buhari and they would let me go. I opted to stay in detention until 5 months later when I was granted bail and restricted to Abuja, because there is no negotiation, there's no going back. I'm sure that everybody knows at this time that Nigeria is ripe and due for a revolution.
But this is a democracy, and we have the process for which governments are changed according to law. But before I dig deep into all of that and begin to ask you some other questions, is there any chance that you're going to consider running for office of president again in Nigeria?
Democracy, yes. This is not a democracy. I don't think you should be saying that. Any system that cannot afford to have credible election is not a democracy. Any system that cannot guarantee citizens fundamental rights is not a democracy. You should go and look up the meaning of democracy. I'm not insulting you. I mean, the basic meaning of democracy. You know that
apologies, but we have a constitution. We're run by the rule of law. Whether that rule of law is practiced in its totality, in its form,
we don't have a constitution.
Whether it is run effectively in its form, is a different kettle of fish. That's the premise. That's why you chose to run.
We don't have
you chose to run for office rather than taking up arms to change the government. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not going to take up arms, but we don't have a constitution. Let me correct you. That thing that was imposed on Nigeria in 1999 is not a constitution. It was a military song of praises, SOP. You went to secondary school when we were using SOP. That one you put at the back pocket, That's not a constitution. A constitution must be vetted by the people. That is why the preamble to every constitution says, we the people. Which people were there when they created the 1999 constitution? It was the military, and it was brought into effect by a decree. We don't have a constitution. Let's be very clear about that, because the more we tell the truth to ourselves, the better we feel about the way forward. We can't stay here on primetime TV and saying that you have a constitution. Who wrote the constitution? Was there a referendum that bettered the constitution into it? No. So we don't have a constitution, with due respect.
So, within the premise of civil rule and all of that, what do you propose besides this advocacy for revolution that we can do to effectively make sure that our people have...
I wish I have an alternative to sell you. I wish I have an alternative to sell you. I don't have an alternative to give you.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
no
let's go to other issues. I'm sure you've had an experience with the law as well as the law enforcement agencies as well as the judiciary. What will be your own assessment? Because the same laws under which you were taken into custody is the same. Some persons, the judiciary, that says, look, let this man go if you don't have any case against him. So what's your assessment of the judiciary?
It is not the judiciary that let me go. It is not the judiciary.
It is a pronouncement of a judge.
And I spoke to the judge. I told the judge.
Go ahead, sir.
I told the judge to dismiss the case. That was a useless case. The judge gave another adjournment till April 15. It wasn't the judiciary that let me go. It was because I had bought my own freedom by refusing to back down. And they realized that this was not going anywhere. And it's important to mention that my lawyers took a position on this too, Femi Falana. He made it clear from day one that nobody can prosecute this case because there will be no evidence and that they were just wasting their time. We told them that 5 years ago. So what they did was to violate their own rules, laws, And they violated the judiciary. So which judiciary? Is it the judge whose wig was flying in the air when I was abducted in the judge that you are calling the judiciary? No, they don't believe in all those things. So, and this is why I have issues with how we debate this issue. I think we should all come to a conclusion that we'll not be lying to ourselves anymore every 7 p.m. on Politics Today about the
Mr. Shore, nobody's lying to anyone.
Of Nigeria.
Nobody's lying to
anyone. I'm just saying that we have to take a decision, all of us, that we can't be saying that we have a judiciary where a citizen can be abducted in front of the judge, and the judge will call the case the next day, behave as if they didn't know that there was an abduction. No, or you are talking about when I was granted bail and after I fulfilled my bail condition, they refused to release me. When they released me, they came back abducted. Is that the judiciary? Or the National Assembly, led by a senator and a former NAS president, Bamidele, who had a sitting and determined that the DSS was and withheld the report till today. Or the Nigerian Bar Association that made no position about my situation. But the American Bar Association sent lawyers every day to court and wrote a report that I did nothing wrong. So these are all the components of your judiciary. And the law enforcement system is a rogue system. It's a rogue system. These things I'm saying to you are things that will bear me witness in the future.
Shore,
I don't want
as
to come
much
here and be sugarcoating that you have a democracy, you have a judiciary, or you have a system in place that is called the rule of law. None.
Well, Mr. Shore, I am sure that
I've lived long enough to be able to tell you the truth and damn the consequences, and whatever happens to me. I'm not going to sit down here and tell you that you have a judiciary, you have a constitution, when you know there is none. We're just running a system of transactions.
If I can butt in here, so that we are clear, your position is well respected. But the truth is that we have laws governing our country. We have the judiciary, we have law enforcement.
We don't.
Whether the elements, just hold on for a minute for me, sir.
That we call laws.
Just whether the elements within these institutions play their role effectively or not is another kettle of fish. That's why we're having this conversation, to make this democracy as robust as possible, because civility is only the way we will go to ensure we have effective dialogue to change the country into that dream country that all of us will want to have. Not making excuses or defending the government in any way, but just to posit it there. Let's move on to other issues now that has to do with, because you have tried to run for president, and I'm sure that looking at what is going on in the country now, you have your ideas as to how to get things fixed. The president has come on 29th of May last year to remove subsidy and then floated the Naira a few months later. And then we're here with these challenges we are facing, and the government is saying we should be patient, that things are going to shape up. The inflation numbers came up yesterday, 29.9, which is literally 30%, and it's quite difficult for a lot of people. If you were to be in the position, what exactly would you have done differently to make this a better situation?
So that's exactly the reason why I was having a back and forth with you. Because during the election, I was here on your show, and I was discussing about the economy, how and why you should not float the Naira. And the response was that I was inexperienced, that I don't know what I'm saying. As a matter of fact, the more I spoke, the less airtime I got from the national media during the election. They prefer people who come here and lie to you. I had stated it clearly that this way was the highway to hell for Nigerians, removal of subsidy. I was the only candidate in the 2023 election that said I won't remove subsidy because there's none. I'll remove the people who are stealing subsidy. And that is exactly what I was going to do. And I said, I won't float the Naira. In fact, I will revalue the Naira, because that's what they did in all these countries across Africa. But you guys are more comfortable with all these fake economists that come on your shows and lie to you that if you remove subsidy, people's life will be better. You're going to have a highway from Lagos to Maiduguri. You remove subsidy now for how many months? Where's the highway? Where are the schools? You know, what's the level of poverty in the country? Have they created employment? No. Has insecurity improved? No. But you don't like to talk to us. You don't like to repeat. I could just sit back home and be having fun. I say, you play everything I said during the election. The few times I had the chance to speak, when I told you that the IMF and the World Bank have nothing to offer this country, I told you guys where we could get money from without ways and means. I told you that the Central Bank of Nigeria was a glorified bureau de change, where people just go and collect money and change it. They are the ones who crashed the Naira. It is those people who have dollars and they are holding it. You cannot have a Central Bank of Nigeria that is engaging in retail banking. And major banks in the country, as I heard Bode George said even recently, all the bank MDs are just doing what they call round tripping. They collect Naira and the money, hold it. It's the same central bank that's supposed to be in charge of the monetary policy that also runs the BDC. So they collect the money and then they change the price or they hold it, and then the price goes up and they make their money. Why would anybody want to build a factory if they can wake up and make 300 million Naira in a day because they are related to the president of the country? All of these guys have BDC, senators, House of Rep members, ministers, the central bank governor of that period that none of you want to talk about is in jail now, accused of stealing 6 million Naira to election observers. I didn't know that Nigeria was paying election observers. But when I was saying it in those days, you guys don't want to hear me. That's the truth.
Mr. Shore, we're totally out of time. No. It's not as if it's democracy. Everybody has a right to speak. Why I try to butt in as much as possible when you make your submission is that we can just hold on, Mr. Shore. We can disagree without disparaging the integrity or the persons of maybe an economist and all of that. You have your position, they have theirs. It's for us to aggregate it right here on the program, and the audience will be able to make sense of the situation.
You should go and play back your tapes and know all the economists that come here to lie to you. And every money show.
That is exactly what I'm saying. That
subsidy life will be better.
That is exactly what I'm saying. That we can do all of this without disparaging people's professionalism. Mr. Shore, I must thank you so much.
I'm not disparaging them. I'm just telling you the truth that these guys don't know economics.
It's okay.
And stop bringing them.
Today is your birthday, so I want to let you go early so you can continue celebrations. I know we had to pull you out. But we're going to have this conversation even further now that all of this case is off the table, so we can have more conversation.
Back, NBC.
What did you say? Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Omoyele Sowore, former presidential candidate of the AAC. Today's his birthday, and of course, besides that, is the fact that the federal government discontinued their case against him that bordered on treason. But when we come back after this break, we'll switch gears. We'll be joined by two former lawmakers who will be expanding on the issue of state police as well as the parliamentary system of government. Join us again. Welcome back. Let's now shift gears to the issue, those two issues I did raise, state police and the call for a change from presidential to parliamentary system of government. We're being joined via Zoom by a former senator representing, who represented Ogun Central in 1999 to 2003. He also chaired the 13-member advisory committee for the 2014 National Conference. Months into all of National Conference, was an advisory chairman of the advisory committee that led to that conference in 2014. Senator Femi Okurumo joins us via Zoom in Abeokuta. Senator, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.
We're also being joined from our Abuja studio by Mr. Tajuddin Yusuf, a former federal lawmaker. Mr. Yusuf, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
All right, let me come to you, Senator. I know you've been on this for a very long time. In fact, what you may be seeing now, I don't know how you received some of this news about the contemplation over the issue of state police. Before we go to the issue of the parliamentary or presidential system of government, I know you have been at the forefront at some point in 1999 about some level of conversation in this direction. How did you take this development from the presidency and the governors?
I think it shows that we're finally ready to begin to do the right thing. All along, we all know the right thing, but we lack the political will to do it. But now circumstances are forcing us. Circumstances beyond the control of everybody are forcing us now to actually do the right thing. If we look at all advanced democracies, whether it is the presidential system or the parliamentary system, let's look at America and let's look at Britain, which are examples of presidential and parliamentary democracies. In both, almost every city has its own police. You have the London police, you have the Manchester police in the UK. Every city has its own police force. In America, every town, every city has its own police force. There's the Boston police. In fact, every county has its own police. So the federal police, which is the FBI, they only call them to assist when they need their help. Ordinarily, it is the police of the immediate branch of government. If it's the local government, to be the county police. If it's the state, it is the state police. It is the police that takes care of the security of the people. It's only when they cannot handle it, they call upon the FBI, which is the federal police. So a centralized police force is an aberration. There is no democracy in the world other than Nigeria that I know, where you have a centralized police force covering, looking over 220 million people and 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. It cannot work. So I think we are finally seeing the light. So that the president is now thinking about having a state police, I think I can congratulate him for it.
Let me come to you, Honorable Tajuddin. When I looked up the 2014 National Conference report, almost 900 pages of that document, some of the people who stood against it before it was adopted as part of the things the country should consider, the cons were there were fears of this could lead to disintegration. It could lead to abuse, talking about politicians abusing this, so using it to fight their political opponent. Given the fact that most of the states are dependent on fact, else they will be insolvent. There were issues of funding. Some said it's anti-retrogressive. Some even raised the issue of jurisdictional conflict. Those were the people that were against it. Looking at what is going on, because the president said they are going to look at this and modalities and all of this. So how do we walk around some of these concerns that were raised? Because the dissenting voices also need to be considered in moving forward.
I agree with you perfectly. But the essence of having these dissenting voices is to make you look at the situation properly so as not to, have a reason to regret your action. People talk about you being controlled by those in power and what have you, and I ask, is the federal police not being controlled right now? Is it not being manipulated? First of all, we're under police. We have the ratio by United Nations should be by, I guess, 40-1. But I think we are over one policeman to over 2,000. So we're under police. Every issue that is true, that is constitutional, can be tackled by the parliament. That's why I like the idea of the fact that it's the president and the governors are in sync with this. So, because unfortunately, with the state assembly right now in Nigeria, not yet that being able to operate independently to take decisions without the influence of the governors. So without the buy-in of the governors, it might be difficult for it to pass. So every amendment that needs to be done should be done. But more importantly, I'm worried about some things. It is, maybe computer parlance, garbage in, garbage out. Have we changed the orientation, the mindset, the training, and the ethical values of the police? Because if you are going to replicate what you have now at the federal, in those states, we're in trouble. Like the senator just said, Britain has over 46 different police units and departments. How do I call it? Different police forces. They specialize. Some are purely for border, some are for poetry. You find in Britain, police arresting police. The traffic police will arrest the normal police for breaking traffic. But Nigeria, we bundle all together and have one IG that is, to me, too powerful and ineffective to manage things. So every of the challenges raised can be tackled and must be looked into. But of a truth, either you call it state police or whatever, we need to unbundle the police. We need to unbundle the police. We must have specialized policing. Those who are in the neighborhood who manage things as simple as even border, what have you. In other crime, like in Britain, you had the the interior handling both immigration and the police. So rather than even having custom men at the border policing the border, they are there to do the administrative work. You had border police. That's like in America. So we need to unbundle the police. We need to. And where we are right now, we need to tinker with the structure we have and come out with a model that will better serve us. How do you post a policeman from maybe Kebbi to my community in Kaba to come and investigate a crime? He does not know the environment, does not know. How does he even operate? When you know very well, can you walk freely when the situation, the security challenges are high? Can you walk freely in the night as a police officer? I talk of where you don't know, you don't speak the language. So there must be local police that will collaborate with the federal police if need to be. So I agree, whatever name, either state police or unbundling the police, where each city has its own police, or local government have their county have their police, we need to unbundle the police force.
Senator, let me come to you. I want to look at this from the prism of those who are worried about it. But since I talked about those who were against it, let me also mention that the people that were for it talked about better intelligence and response time. And as the Honorable has said, they said there's no data to verify that the federal government has better integrity compared to the state. Those were the argument then. But let's come to some of the issues raised. Senator, how do we insulate these police, if eventually it comes true, from abuse by governors? Because that potential is there.
The governors are citizens like the president. They are not from different planets. The governors come from the same environment like the president, like the federal officials. If governors can abuse it, the abuse will not be more than what is being done right now by the federal authorities. If by having one control, by having the entire police force controlled by the federal government, that is subject to more abuse, greater abuse, more severe abuse. Because it means one man, the president, can tell the police to harass anybody from any part of the country, fairly or unfairly. It means that the president can direct the police, can order the police to carry out his will, either in accordance with the law or against the law, just to satisfy himself and satisfy his political interests. So if one man can abuse the entire police force of the country, it is better to split the abuse. Instead of one man abusing it, let 37 people be abusing it. Each man has less police force to abuse.
Wow.
That is my if the governor can abuse, the president can abuse, and the president is abusing. You look at what the police do during elections. During elections, the police are supposed to be there to protect the voters and make sure that everybody votes peacefully. But once the IG has his directives as to what party to support, the police go there, they will stand by while the thugs are beating people of the opposition party and allowing people of the preferred party to go and cast their votes while they are beating and whipping and talking.
Senator, if I understand you very well, I'm looking for answers, but it looks to me like your response is more like, rather than one abuse, you say, let's duplicate the abuse as much as possible. That doesn't sound like a solution, because the central argument is against abuse.
If the abuse is in the hands of 37 people, it is less treacherous, it is less severe. It is better than one man be able to abuse the police throughout the country, as it is now.
Okay, Senator, your point is actually noted, but I don't think citizens who are ready for that level of proliferation of abuse at all. But I did say we're going to talk about...
Sorry, I have to correct you. That is not a proliferation of abuse, a reduction of abuse. Oh. You take at one level of abuse, you divide it into 37 parts, so each state is only suffering 1/37 of the abuse it was suffering before. So it is only a minuscule part of the abuse it was suffering under one man.
Well, this is a rare...
This is a rare
let me come to Honorable Tajuddin. Honorable Tajuddin, I don't know what your response will be to this particular issue. Well, the senator has given his position on this worry over abuse. What's yours? In like 30 seconds before I ask other questions.
I raised something fundamental, that what is our ethical standard? We should be more interested in raising the bar and making the police more responsible and more fair and just. What is the training models? How do they emerge? Presently, as the police is constituted, can you say that we have this police force that is disciplined and what have you? And I said something. I say, in the computer balance, garbage in, garbage out. If you replicate what you have now in state police, then we're in trouble.
Okay, because of we don't have the luxury of time, I needed to squeeze in two major conversations in one. Let's now switch gears to the issue of this call by the 60 lawmakers. We should switch gears to the parliamentary system of government. In fact, Mr. Tajudeen, I will start with you on this one. They talked about the reason to ignite and provoke a national conversation, ensure robust public debate on this. These are some of the things they hope for. But fundamentally in the bill, they are looking at replacing the president with prime minister as head of government and establishing office of president as ceremonial leader. They talked about shifting the process of electing governors and chairmen of local government from general election to voting with their respective legislative bodies. What's your response?
Let me take the election leg. I think if we can have election a bit not too staggered, will reduce the influence of manipulation. Two, if you know that the local government and the whatever election is controlled by the one body that has some degree of insulation from being manipulated, it might help. But let me dig into the parliamentary issue or what the debate. I love the idea that they say they want to have a debate about an already bill. You want Nigerians to kind of, come out with ideas, make it robust. But the major reason why people are charging for such a thing is the fact that what we have now is not delivering. Ghana has a very unique democracy. They have a parliamentary presidential. The president is elected in general election. But the parliament is part of the government. You have ministers serving in the government as members of parliament. First of all, there's this argument, which I want to concur with, that it reduces the cost of government. Two, that it bridges the gap for citizens to reach out to their people in government. Because the minister will come to the parliament and sit while members of the parliament are bringing the issue in their constituency to him right there. What we have right now, being in parliament, I've worked in the parliament reasonable for 3 terms, and I understand that if the executive does not feel comfortable with certain things the parliament is looking for, those in the executive have a way of foot dragging or find a way to excuse themselves from appearing to answer those questions. It is ideally wrong. That should not be the practice. But unfortunately, because of our background, the military rule and what have you, those who are executive feel, who are you to question me? Why do you dare to question me? We are not there yet. In fact, it's so bad that even budgets are implemented in partial of the fulfillment of what is the budget, in the allocation in the budget.
Honorable Tajudeen, let's not...
I have the opinion that we should discuss.
No, you can land on your thought, please. Just land on your thought. Apologies. Just land on your thought.
I'm of the opinion that it should be discussed, debated, and let Nigerians take a decision. But for truth, we need to think of what we have and bring something new that will help us reduce cost. Two, bring government close to the people more. The idea of having people insulated and having a gap here, Parliament, too, has major role to play.
Okay.
We are not there, especially in the state. We don't have a vote at all. A Parliament that has a voice.
All right, let me go to Senator Okoromo as quickly as possible. Senator, do you agree that it should be a total shift from presidential to parliamentary, or we should adopt what the 2014 confab said, what they call the modified presidential system? You just have a minute, sir.
I agree we should go back to the parliamentary system. That is what we were operating between 1960 and the military intervention in 1966. The parliamentary system is cheaper and more effective and more accountable than the presidential system. To begin with, the presidential system, as it has turned out in Nigeria, is it breeds corruption and promotes corruption and defends corruption. In fact, it is one of the things that is multiplying corruption in Nigerian society and making our society very corrupt. In the presidential system, we're supposed to have 3 arms which are more or less separate. We call it separation of powers. But in Nigeria, there is no such thing. The separation of powers is just in theory. In practice, there's only one power, that's the presidency.
Okay.
Once the president bribe the National Assembly and allow, give them the leeway to be as corrupt as they want, then the National Assembly in turn give the president the leeway to be as corrupt as they want. All we have is everybody corrupt.
All right.
So the National Assembly will be corrupt, the presidency will be corrupt, the judiciary will be corrupt, and everything, nobody can be punished because of them get together, they are all corrupt.
Okay, all right, Senator Femi Okoromo, former senator representing. My sincere apologies, Senator. I understand we're totally out of time. I just wanted you to land on your thought, but technical issues as well. Former senator representing Ogun Central from 1999 to 2003, Senator Femi Okoromo. Thank you so much for coming through on the program. Thank you for your insight. I also want to thank Mr. Tajuddin Yusuf, former lawmaker. I know, Mr. Tajuddin, you have a lot to say on this, but luxury of time is what we don't have. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you.
And that's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. Have yourself a beautiful weekend.